Hello, everybody. Hope everyone's having a great night. And let's get right into it. Welcome to the Northeast Ohio Sports Show here on Billy Doodle Channel. Currently episode 62. Hope everyone's having a great start to their weeks. And, one more day. Almost Friday, guys. We can get it. Almost time for some great sports. We had some preseason football tonight, so hope everyone's having a good one. Welcome again to Billy Doodle Show here on YouTube. Thursday, August 20th, 2026. We'll go right into it. A funny, not so funny topic, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in the show as well. It's the Browns quarterback situation. It's basically become a comedy. If you're a Cleveland Browns fan like I am, and I don't like football like I do other sports anymore. I like college a little bit more, maybe NFL, but I like racing a lot more now. Even like basketball and even the MLB, I kind of like more modern NFL, but that's just me. If you probably learned on some important lessons over the years. Never expect the quarterback situation to be simple here in Cleveland. And somehow heading into our 2026 season, Cleveland has managed to complicate it all over again. Browns have started training camp with a quarterback completion centered primarily around Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders, with Dylan Gabriel also in the mix. They all did horrible in the first preseason, so we'll talk about it later on too. At some point, Sanders was getting the first team work with 11-on-11 drills, while Watson was working with the second team. On other days, Watson was back with the starters. Then came the preseason opener against Chicago Bears, where the competition got even more interesting. Watson completed 11 for 15 passes for 126 yards, while Sanders went 6 for 11 for 79 yards and an interception. Watson's performance gave him a boost in the competition, while Sanders didn't exactly slam the door shut. And also, I think it would be interesting, and we talked a little bit about this. I do think that actually Sanders would be better with that Lamar Jackson style offense if we actually can get him running really well. And this is where the comedy rally begins. Instead of having a clear-cut quarterback battle, Cleveland basically has two quarterbacks trying to convince the coaching staff that they're the least complicated answer. Watson has the experience and the enormous contract that we gave him hasn't worked for us that much. That's basically, to me, that's the main motivator. You know what I mean? If you have a very fancy car, beautiful car, and it's 5 years old, and it only has 1,000 miles on it, you might have to reevaluate that investment for the car. You know what I mean? If this is a car that, let's say just like these football players, you're not going to get a good ROI after 5 to 10 years like you did at the start when they're in their prime. Cars, used cars kind of interesting too, actually, I guess. But doing basically, in my opinion, try to work him more than Sanders, and that's okay. It really is. It makes sense to me. He kind of needs it right now. He's a little older. He has experience, but the thing is he hasn't played in such a long time, and he did not look good in the regular season when he came back. So that's scaring me. But his time in Cleveland, like I said, even his injuries has been scary too. He's now trying to reestablish himself after another major injury while trying to make them TikTok dances. Sanders, meanwhile, is much younger and much more intriguing option, especially with his run ability and with a new, I don't know if his name is Todd Monken or whatever, I don't know. Whoever our new offensive coordinator is, I'm not too good in football. Browns drafted him in the 5th round as obvious curiosity of whether he could eventually become a team's long-term answer. But his rookie season was exactly spectacular, and his preseason performance has been inconsistent. I also saw a video though of Gabriel almost hurt a rookie wide receiver. It was a video where he basically threw it a crossing route, I'm guessing into a linebacker or a safety, and as a quarterback, even me playing Madden, I know, well, that dude's going to get his ass laid out, and then that ball's in the air, and that's an interception or a fumble. I do not like tight ends, wide receivers throwing crossing routes down the middle. Crossing routes are actually very well to be made on the outsides. However, it all depends on the defense. If it's cover 2 and there's actually no one protecting the middle, just the outsides, yeah, I'd actually throw in the middle. If they have a zone that isn't covered in the middle, like a Tampa, any type of Tampa 2 zone, for sure. Browns fans are sitting and watching every training camp like it's the NFL version of American Idol, which is actually very true. We're enough to get one of the starting jobs. Does it look better than the other guy? We're basically waiting for the head coach and GM to give someone that gold star or whatever it was called. So it'll be interesting. Yeah, head coach Tom Monken has even had to deal with reporters repeatedly asking about the competition and whether his comments mean for Sanders or Watson. The Browns are even trying to evaluate both players while also keeping competition becoming a soap opera as well. And that's just how Cleveland is. Vallejo's plan continues to chaos. Sanders is expected to start the upcoming season game against Buffalo, so that's fair. They only have preseason games now, 3 preseason games, instead of 4 like they used to, so they couldn't actually do an even split. The Browns are reportedly hoping to get much closer to a decision as the preseason continues, with the final preseason coming against August 27th and the regular preseason approaching. To be awesome to see, and I do think it's fair to give them both at least one preseason game with the starters and see how they do. Maybe after the second game, this is probably what they'll do. Whoever did better, they will let them actually be the starter again for the third game. Take a sip of water and we'll keep going. And let's go right into our F1 recap. So you see below us, this weekend we have the Dutch Grand Prix. We have a sprint race. I believe it's like 7 a.m. on Sunday. Saturday morning. And then Sunday's the race at 9. I believe the, and I could look, it'll say below me as well. Qualifying should be 4 hours. Only 3. There's sprints at 6 a.m., my bad. And then qualifying at 10. Oh my god, I'm not getting up that early on Saturday. So, excited for that. Basically, F1's back this weekend after the summer break. The 2026 championship is also shaping up to be one of the most unpredictable seasons in recent memory. We'll talk a little bit about that. The last race was the Hungarian Grand Prix at the Hungaroring. The next stop, like I said, Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort. There's plenty happening off and on the track, but a lot of people getting signed as well. It's awesome to see a lot of extensions happening. So, they want to get drivers lined up for next year ready. The Hungarian Grand Prix was actually on July 26th, of a huge day for Lando Norris and McLaren. Norris took a Grand Prix victory, his first Grand Prix victory as well for the 2026 season, beating Max Verstappen by over 15 seconds. Wow. Kimi Antonelli finished third for Mercedes, followed by Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. Norris's victory was especially important because Norris had struggles to convert its pace into wins early in the season. For reigning world champs, so that McLaren could still compete with Mercedes and Ferrari at the front, but sometimes it would be reliability issues with the new Mercedes engine this year. Behind Norris, Verstappen produced what was essentially a damaged limitation drive for Red Bull. He finished second despite Red Bull lacking the outright pace Mercedes and McLaren had over the weekend. The biggest disappointment was actually Oscar Piastri. The other McLaren driver was fighting near the front before an apparent gearbox problem forced him to retire during the final stages. Thank you, Mercedes. Mercedes engine, Mercedes gearbox. That turned into what could have been a strong McLaren weekend into split results for the team. Ferrari also finished a frustrating weekend, with Hamilton finishing 5th after receiving a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. BS, I hate speeding in the pit lane, even at NASCAR, whatever. Hamilton was also openly critical of Ferrari's strategy, arguing that a late pit stop had cost him the opportunity to fight for the podium. And I was watching the race, and that is true. George Russell had its own nightmare. An anti-start issue at the start dropped him all the way back down to 21st. He was with the Cadillacs at the start. Although he managed to recover to 7th by the finish. Damn. 14 places. That's how good that Mercedes is. So in classic F1 fashion, the Hungarian Grand Prix gave us everything. Strategy, arguments, penalties, mechanical failures like we always see in F1 all the time now, especially this first year for new engines, regulations, and comeback and driver championship implications. Right now, heading into the summer break, and now it's over, Kimi Antonelli remains the man to beat. After Hungary, Antonelli had 219 points, giving him a 50-point lead over Lewis Hamilton's 169. Nice. George Russell was third with 160, Charles Leclerc was fourth with 138, and Lando Norris fifth. With 128, Max Verstappen sat 6th at 109, and that should be outside of his contract. When you become a good driver in F1, what happens is you get a clause in your contract and say, hey, if I'm ever bad, if we're ever bad in the constructors and over drivers, you could pick, but a lot of times they do drivers, I'm allowed to leave. So basically he's saying, and sometimes it is for driver, and the team uses that. So it benefits the team and the driver. It's interesting. Just because it hits, it doesn't mean he's automatically fired. It's just either the team or the driver could implement that clause in the contract saying, hey, we're not, I believe it's second or third for Max. I'm allowed to leave this year. I'm not a break for contract. If it could be a 3-year contract and it's 1 year in. If the team's doing bad, I'm out. It's always it's a pretty interesting save that these drivers do. Mercedes also had a significant advantage in the Constructors' Championship. The team finished at 379 points. Let's go RoboCats, great number. Ahead of Ferrari's 307, McLaren at 220, and Red Bull at 177. Mercedes has won 8 of the first 11 Grand Prix. For next race being the Dutch Grand Prix this weekend. This weekend is significantly important because it's the final Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort for the foreseeable future. F1 is leaving the circuit after the 2026 race, and rip my Dutch brethren, that's Van Dutch style. Let's go out to Amsterdam, have a good time. Sad, kinda. This Grand Prix is, I believe, I don't think it may have been since F1 since the start, but at least I know it's been here since the 60s, and we'll look here in a second. But it's sad. The sights were always beautiful because everyone would ride their bike, ride their bike to the race because it's benevolent. And then they would camp out there too. So there'd be like, instead of a huge parking lot filled with cars, it was bikes and then tents too. It's really cool to see. I always thought it'd be awesome race. They did get to add a good twist for the last race, like we saw. There was a sprint. And it's actually the first time they're hosting an F1 sprint weekend. And actually, this is always a tougher place to pass. So a sprint actually doesn't benefit the viewers really, or F1 entertainment-wise. So they're kind of giving this to the track, which I like. I love to see it. For American viewers, the schedule works out for a relatively manageable European race weekend, with Sunday Grand Prix beginning at 9, which is actually pretty good Eastern time. Japan's 3 a.m., so not very fun. And naturally, everybody will be watching Max Verstappen. The Dutchman hasn't been extraordinarily successful at home circuit since Zandvoort returned to F1 in 2021. He has won 3 times there and finished second twice. With this being his final Dutch Grand Prix, Verstappen has the opportunity to end the current F1 era of another victory in front of the famous orange crowd. All of his fans go there, and they all love wearing orange. Interesting part here, one of the biggest stories circling on F1 isn't about this race weekend. It's about Max Verstappen's future, and it kind of already went into that. But basically, it's evolving if he might go to McLaren. Rumors have around his future become one of the biggest off-track stories of the season. It was also last season with them doing bad, with reports suggesting his decision could have major implications on the next year's driver market, which it will. But for now, nothing's been announced, so it'll be interesting. There's also another immediate driver's change story for Red Bull. Sorry about that, had a burp. Ajay Kajor was set to miss a Dutch Grand Prix because of a wrist injury, meaning my namesake, Liam Lawson, will be temporarily returned to Red Bull. His move creates another shuffle for Yuki Tsunoda, replacing him coming back at Racing Bulls. Let's go, Yuki, we miss him. Lawson's return is particularly interesting because he previously raced for Red Bull and Racing Bulls. He did horrible at Red Bull. Carlos Sainz ends a rumor he re-signs with McLaren, which is awesome to see. So did Alex Albon, if I'm not mistaken. So once again, just going over it, we have free practice 1 tomorrow at 6:30 a.m. with a sprint shootout, or what they call a sprint qualifying, tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. for race being at 6 a.m. on Saturday for a sprint. Then we have qualifying Saturday at 10 a.m. and the race Sunday at 9 a.m. Zandvoort, it's a tri-oval. The circuit length is a 4.307 kilometers with a total distance of 301.49 kilometers, 70 laps, 14 turns going counterclockwise. Established in 1939. That's even older, I believe, than Imola. Older than Silverstone. Beautiful place. Lap record was by Lewis Hamilton in 2021 with that beautiful, I believe it was, for Mercedes 11. I forget how they number them. I forget it's not WB, but however they number them, it's not like Nicky Lauda. I forget how they use it. But I believe there's 11 for Dustin of a Mercedes car. Beautiful car, very fast. Lewis Hamilton doing great. That's the car that had the dual axis steering. What I talked about, the drivers' championships. After that, nothing really too crazy. Once again, it's Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull, Racing Bulls, Alpine, Haas, Audi, Williams, Aston Martin with 1 point at 10th, and Cadillac, our team I love, last, 0 points in 11th. Take a quick quick whip of the vape, and we'll talk about Indycar. Another great series with some good stuff happening this weekend. Another first-time race. Love to see it. with IndyCar heading into one of the most unusual weekends of its 2026 season. The last race was the inaugural Ontario Honda's dealers at Markham, which I believe is outside Toronto. And the next race is something IndyCar has never done before, a race through the streets of Washington, D.C., around National Mall, and Trump put it on them very late, and they did it. I was surprised. A lot of us, like we talked about when they actually announced this, all the sports people were so mad, all the sports reporters, because they already planned out and scheduled, budgeted their season. And then this happens, and this is a one-off. They're not going to do this next year on 250 of America's. Beautiful. Only problem is, Trump could have told IndyCar about this last year when he was president, and IndyCar could have put it on the season from the start, and it wasn't on the season from the start. So that's not always the best, you know what I mean? A lot of it, IndyCar is spending a lot of money, or they're going to make a lot of money. It would be interesting, you know what I mean? It's even the Indy 500, which it's the biggest sporting event in person. 350,000 people show up. That's 3 times Ohio State, 3 times Happy Valley in Penn State, double Churchill Downs with 167 at Churchill Downs, 6-7. Hey, sorry, brain rot. But it's so interesting how the views aren't always there. Because I believe like IndyCar can get like 37 million for the Indy 500. I might be way off. I might have to look it up. Because we talked about it when Indy happened. But like all the other races besides the Indy 500 don't actually get very good television views. It's just for diehard fans. You know what I mean? 350,000 fans showing up to one race is a lot. But if they watch every weekend, that's not millions. It's not the NFL. So I think it will be interesting to see if IndyCar actually gets to return on their investment. And even then, I'm patriotic. I get it. 250, I like it. I won't lie. I can't lie about it. Wish it was better planned. And another issue too is that when you do an actual street circuit in a major city, it never works out in America. For Vegas, for the past couple years for F1, it's been hell. Same with for Chicago for NASCAR. And a lot of people are saying the same is going to happen with IndyCar. Because IndyCar and NASCAR, even NASCAR doesn't make the money F1 does. You know, NASCAR doesn't go around the world to race. They go around North America. They don't have the money to build up these street circuits, and they also don't have the experience like F1 does. So when F1 comes into places, even like Vegas now, and we've seen it more every year. They've done Vegas for more times, for more and more passenger bridges they create. So like I have a cousin Ben, he was saying he lives in Chicago when they were doing the NASCAR street race back in the day, which is not doing this. They didn't do this year, which is awesome, great. But Chicagoland, an actual track. You know, sometimes he'll be walking down a street and the block was just closed, and it's like, well, you know, if the block's closed that you're walking towards, sorry, that means the race is going basically perpendicular to how you're going. So you're kind of cut off for that whole. You can go down a block, and the race is probably still there. You know what I mean? And it's gonna turn at a point. So it's like if you're on the inside of that, you're screwed. And then you have to find a bridge, and a lot of times you don't educate the public. There's millions of people in these cities, for God's sake. New York, DC. It wasn't, you know, nothing too crazy for Vegas. There's a lot of people in Vegas, but it's nothing like DC or Chicago. And then, you know, they don't put up the number of pedestrian bridges that F1 does. So it's interesting. The Markham race was on August 16th, a chaotic debut for IndyCar's newest street circuit. I watched it. My dad watched it. It was a great race. Marcus Ericsson was the big winner for Andretti Global. Awesome to see. I actually got to meet Marcus Ericsson when my first IndyCar race at Mid-Ohio. Ericsson charged from 7th after his final pit stop and passed Roman Grosjean with his final laps remaining to win the 90 lap race. If Roman Grosjean would have won, that would have been crazy. A podium for him is awesome, though. That's the guy that F1 crashed in Bahrain, I believe. His car actually split. His F1 car split a guardrail. Like, if a guardrail was like this, it just split the sheet metal in half. And if a car went through it and caught on fire, and that's something that's not really supposed to happen in modern F1 cars. A lot of it is because that guardrail was not supposed to fail and let him go through it like that, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It split the car in half, actually, and he was on fire, and he survived and still races in IndyCar. A true hero, like a racing hero. And a lot of people I know I talked to that know IndyCar, know the history of sport and F1 a little bit, know about that, and that was just crazy. He had his wedding ring on him, and he still has a blister mark, like a burn mark there. and then took him time to heal. I believe it was like 29 seconds he was on fire. Insane. It was Ericsson's 5th career IndyCar victory, though, and his first since 2023, ending a 63 winless drought, which is awesome to see for Andretti. Going back to Grosjean, it was his best result of the season, but there's a very familiar situation attached to it. It was his 6th career runner-up and his 7th podium in IndyCar, meaning he still hasn't reached the top step among the series. However, even when Andretti, and there's been guys that have driven F1 and IndyCar, it's not always plug and play that they're going to be great. And I'm going to be honest, he wasn't great in F1. He was a Haas driver, and I like Haas. I'm an American, Haas American team at NASCAR, but he wasn't great in F1. He's not going to be a great IndyCar driver, but he's actually doing pretty good. Will Power completed the podium 3rd. World Championship, Alex Palou finished in 4th. The result was completely important for the championship because Palou was still able to extend his points advantage even after a difficult weekend. Palou had one of her rare mistakes in qualifying, crashing and ending a remarkable 30-race qualifying streak of making it through the second round. So right now the championship standings, we have Alex Palou at 543, Kyle Kirkwood in 2nd at 409, Alex Palou with Chip Ganassi, Kyle Kirkwood with Andretti Global, David Malukas with Penske, 405, Christian Lundgaard with Arrow, 403, my boy Pato O'Ward in 5th at 385, Joseph Newgarden with Penske, in 6th at 352, Scott McLaughlin with Penske, 7th for 345, and by the way, Penske owns IndyCar and the Indy 500 race and the track. Then we have Felix Rosenqvist, Indy 500 winner this year, Marcus Ericsson, and then Rinus VeeKay in 10th. Awesome to see. Ericsson's win moved him into the 9th of the championship, meaning the man who dominated the headlines and market is pretty much suddenly much more relevant in the standings as well. The next race is the Freedom 250. God damn. I'm hyped for it, guys. I really am. Freedom 250 Grand Prix in Washington, D.C. Make sure you got your Copenhagen mint ready and your Busch lattes. It's going to be awesome. It's not just another street race. It is a first ever IndyCar race through D.C. using a temporary circuit of some of the country's most recognizable landmarks. And that's one thing people are complaining. The track isn't a good racing track. None of the street circuits are. And they designed it to look good on TV. So, oh wow, they're going past the landmarks. They connected it on Google Maps, the landmarks, said, well, which ones do we want to show, Fox said, and said, how do we connect the track around there? But I get it. It's going to be cool to see. It really is. America, it's 250. The 125 lap race will be held on Sunday with pre-race coverage beginning at 11:30 a.m. and race scheduled for 1 p.m. Awesome to see at 11:30 p.m. And yes, IndyCars will be racing around the National Mall. It'll be so cool to see. I believe in front of the White House too, and the Capitol building. It's going to be freaking crazy. And I wonder, I believe if it's 2 miles long, it makes it 250 miles. So, America. I love that. This alone makes it one of the most visually unusual motorsports event of the year, and probably in history. The big question is whether Palou can continue his incredible season. He has already won 6 races in 2026, and he's actually the favorite in Washington. However, the DC circuit also creates a major unknown because it's completely new. Drivers have no previous race data to rely on, meaning setup, braking zones, tire strategy, and avoiding the concrete walls will be much more important than normal, and practice will matter, and something too, they can't sim it. It's such a new race, they're not going to have time to run LiDAR throughout the track. It's DC, baby. So, kind of what they do is once the track's built, they're going to LiDAR it for next year. And they're not even do it for next year, but that's what F1 did in Vegas. And there's certain parts that are built, and it's kind of interesting. F1 has our first ever race coming here, too, in Madrid in a couple weeks, and a bunch of people are saying, oh, that's not ready. So it'll be interesting. It really will be. Okay, so the track length is 1.7 miles, so almost. Race distance is 147 laps at 249.9 miles. Well, they tried. I mean, probably with pit stops they hit 250. Yuck. It'll be awesome. It's going to recognize the historical milestone of America's independence and celebrate the unparalleled tradition and legacy of Americans' motorsports history. And that's true. America. us and the Europeans, we race and we have different racing styles, but we've all loved to race. A lot of it comes from post-World War II, all of these GIs being bored. And I love it. That's how it be. Once again, on Ontario, we had Marcus Ericsson, Roman Grosjean, Will Power in third, Alex Palou in fourth, Pato O'Ward in fifth, my boy, Christian Lundgaard in sixth, Venus VK in seventh, Scott McLaughlin in eighth, Graham Rahal in ninth, Santino Ferrucci in 10th, Stingray Robb in 11th. Then we have Nolan Siegel, 12th, Joseph Newgarden in 13th, Griffin Simpson 14th, Dennis Hogger 15th, Marcus Armstrong 16th, David Malukas 17th, bad day for him in Penske. Yes, same with Scott McLaughlin in 8th, Scott Dixon in 18th, I believe he's like a 6-time IndyCar winner, but it's a new track. Kyle Collette 19th, rookie. Alexander Rossi 20th, Kyle Kirkwood 21, bad day for him for Andretti Global. Lewis Foster in 22, Kristen Rasmussen in 23, and Felix Rosenquist, another bad day for a winner. I believe he actually, I don't think he finished, he did not. 24th, and Mick Schumacher, classic F1 driver. His dad's a GOAT, he's not. In F1, he hit the wall so many times, especially at one of the worst places to do it and easiest place to do it, Monte Carlo. But he hit the wall again here too. A classic. He hit the wall at the Indy, for God's sake. It's a rectangle. For dude who said, "Oh, the Indy's not a hard track. I'm for European. I'm good at Indy," and then hits the wall. So yeah, I love you, Mick. I kind of do, but I kind of don't. Whatever. Alex Palou in first in the standings. Kyle Kirkwood second. David Malukas, Christian Lundgaard, Pato O'Ward. Again, to round that out. Then we'll go into a quick sig, and we'll go right into NASCAR. Boy, Ryan Blaney had a good week last week. He did not win though. He ended up having, we'll talk a little about, I can't go off about it. We'll talk about it here in a second. I'm sorry. Hope everyone's having a great night. If you got any comments, input, drop it in the comment section. NASCAR Cup Series is heading into 2 final races of the regular season, and the battle for the 16-driver chase is getting extremely tight for the bracket. The last race was a Cookout 400 at Richmond on August 15th at Richmond Raceway. Joey Logano reminded everyone that he is still a championship threat. Logano drove for 22 Penske car to his second victory of the season, beating Chase Briscoe by just .392 seconds. Crazy. It was also Logano's 39th career victory and his third at Richmond. Awesome burnout by him. Briscoe had to actually have a dominant car much of the race, but his number 19 Toyota led a race at 171 out of the 400 laps, but a late brake issue, same with Blaney, probably the heat, hurt his ability to fight back when Logano made his final move. Austin Cindric finished third. A strong day for Penske if they actually got to have Blaney do well, giving Team Penske a huge 1-3 result. It would be nice, like I said, if they can get that 1-2-3. Cindric and Briscoe making the podium. Denny Hamlin finished 4th, and Chase Elliott was 5th. Kyle Larson was 6th, followed by Christopher Bell, Joss Berry, William Byron, Alex Bowman. I believe Blaney won the first 2 stages, so good on points, and then the last stage, I believe he finished 13th. The biggest championship story may actually been Austin Cindric. His third place finish moved him from 16th to 15th in the standings and increases Kirsten above the Chase cutoff from 29 points to 57 points. So Penske's going to have 3 drivers in there, all 3 awesome, with only 2 of the regular season racing remaining. That's a massive result for that number 2 team. Championship standings after Richmond, Danny Hamlin remains a point leader with Ryan Blaney in 2nd, Ty Gibbs in 3rd, Tyler Reddick, Chase Briscoe, Chase Elliott, Christopher Bell have also secured good positions. The next race is for Dollar Tree 301 at New Hampshire Motor Speedway on Sunday, August 23rd. Blaney's won there before. Logano's won there before for green flag scheduled for 3 p.m. on the eastern side of USA Network. New Hampshire is also a completely different challenge from Richmond, with drivers dealing from the track's famous flat 1-mile configuration. No embankment. Have fun. Ryan Blaney is the obvious driver to watch. He won last year's New Hampshire race and enters for weekend 2nd of a championship standings with 2 victories and also 16 top 10s this season. He's also currently the favorite, and like I said, he's done very well on points. So he's won a lot of stages this year too. Christopher Bell is another major storyline because his record 7th runner-up finishes in 2026, but he still hasn't won a race basically. Be interesting to see. Yeah, so Ryan Blaney moved up in the standings. over Ty Gibbs. So we have Danny Hamlin in first. He has 9.69. Nice. Then Danny Hamlin in 8.54. Ty Gibbs at 8.42. Tyler Reddick in fourth, 8.31. Chase Briscoe at 7.15. Then we have Chase Elliott, Bell, Kyle Larson, Joey Logano in ninth. Chris Buescher in 10th. Carson Hocevar dropping down in 11th. Hasn't won in a while. Same with William Byron since at Daytona. He's in 12th. Daniel Suarez in 13th. Oh, sorry, he won Daytona last year. My bad. Bubba Wallace in 14th. He had these. Toyotas aren't doing that well later in the season. Tyler Reddick's still holding up there, and Danny Hamlin. But it's interesting about some of these 23 teams. Austin Cindric 15th. Like we said, then SVG dropped down actually to 16th. Outside the cutoff, then we have Ryan Preece, Ross Chastain, Brad Keselowski, Eric Jones, Mitch McDowell. So I'm interested to see if some of these guys can get in there. I'll take a quick swig, quick hitter for vape, yuck, and then we'll go to the MLB. Our Guardians had a mixed but a frustrating week, going 3-for-3 over the last 6 games from August 13th through the 19th. Cleveland has ended a stretch, trying to stop a slide that has already put significant pressure on our playoff hopes. And I don't know if we were playing today. Let me look. So since last Thursday, on the 13th, we lost to Detroit 3-0. We lost to San Diego on Friday 7-5 to start the series. Beat them Saturday 6-1. Lost Sunday 5-1, 5-0. Sorry, to lose the series. Beat San Francisco on Tuesday 8-1. Lost to them yesterday 1-0. But we also beat San Francisco today, so that's awesome to see for our Guardians. Love to see it. And that makes us 62 and 66, dropping like flies. We were over 500. That was a while ago. Right now, leading our division is Chicago White Sox with 66 wins and 61 losses. Then we have Minnesota 3.5 games behind. We're only 4.5 games behind, so we could get above Minnesota, and that would be awesome. Then we have Detroit 5 games behind, so they are getting close now. Kansas City not doing the best, 12 games behind. Our next series starts tomorrow against Colorado. Hopefully we could actually win this out. We have Trevor Bybee pitching on Saturday, Continello pitching tomorrow, and Griffin pitching Sunday. Then Monday we start our series against the Angels with Mizik pitching Monday, Williams pitching Tuesday, Continello pitching Wednesday. Interesting to see. I believe we could probably win out this Colorado series. They haven't been good in a long time. LA, maybe another different story. We'll probably tie there, but it really depends on how we really go here. The bottom line, Cleveland went 3-3 this past week. However, we also got to celebrate a 10,000th victory, which is cool. We saw Parker Mizik continue to emerge as a major pitching storyline, but continue to struggle offensively, especially with injuries. With playoff race tightening, Guardians' biggest challenge is no longer providing they could play good baseball. It's proving if they can do consistent enough to make September basically meaningful for our fans and people like us. It'll be interesting. We've always had this issue for the past 10 years, 15 years, even longer than that, since the 90s. They've never put money into a team. We've had stars, but anytime those stars get hurt, the team breaks. We saw it, I guess, was that 2017 after the World Series a year when Edwin and Encarnacion broke his ankle? I think I was at that game against the Yankees, and we ended up winning. I believe we came back from a Lindor grand slam. But like back then, we had guys like Lindor, Jose, Edwin, who was a beast at hitting them home runs, if you remember. Carlos Santana, not his prime, but a little bit after his prime. We had good offensive guys, and we still have a lot of guys now, but we don't have 3 stars. We just have 1 star offensively, and we have to work on that. And I don't know if basically the owners are going to spend that kind of money. And listen, I won't lie, if I was in baseball, I don't know if I would either. Because you have, the Dodgers spending a dumb amount of money, the Yankees spending a dumb amount of money. You know what I mean? There's these 2 top teams, and then there's like 6 to 8 teams after that still spending $100 million. And it's like, sorry, $100 million is not a lot anymore. I think they're like 200, 150. And it's like, how do I even touch that? It's maybe not a good business investment for a lot of these other teams. And maybe that's why they need a salary cap in the freaking MLB. Alright, it's very interesting. Cleveland's great now. Going on to the Browns, kind of back from our first topic. We're prepping. We had a joint practice with Buffalo Bills. Story remains quarterback competition now. And they're basically indicating that the decision for his quarterback will basically happen after a preseason finale on August 27th next week. Watson's basically trying to prove he could return to a quarterback he was earlier in the career after the injuries and limited playing time. I feel like that's impossible. Even when we got him, I said it was dumb. I said exactly what was going to happen. And I felt like I'm not good at sports like this, but like when you see a POS like Watson coming in here, you see us giving him money and he hasn't played in 2 years, I'm scared. I think that's a bad idea. And I said it was a bad idea when we got him, and it was. We've been saying it for the last year and a half on this show. What's interesting is that neither quarterback has completely taken control of the competition. Sanders has generally generated plenty of buzz of his playmaking ability, but Watson has shown flashes of experience and improved health. And we're going to keep the guys who's more compromised in the pocket, more relaxed in the pocket. Training camp got heated on Tuesday, August 18th. Monken actually ended up practice early after several plays crossed the line between competitive and unnecessarily dangerous. A defender hit Sanders during a non-contact period, and running back Krishan Jenkins involved in another hard collision. Monken made it clear that he wants players to be physical, but he also wants them to protect one another and hug and kiss in the locker room. I'm not a boomer, I'm kidding. That's funny to me. The internet has created plenty of discussion online because Cleveland is now heading into joint practices where things get even hotter. And we kind of saw that before, like I said, with the hits. So it'll be interesting to see. And I believe, let me look real quick, for the result of our first preseason game. I know we lost. I don't know how much we lost by. And we were looking into it for the first little bit, but no. So first preseason game against the Bears, we lost 10-34. It's a preseason game. Who cares? After the first quarter, we were up 3-0. Then after the second quarter, we were tied 10-10. Then after halftime, it was over. We didn't score at all in the third and fourth, and Chicago scored 14 in the third and 10 in the fourth. So that's the Browns for you. To me, the offense looked horrible, and that's just how it's going to be. Our defense will need to carry, and we do have our dogs on defense. We don't have Miles anymore. A lot of it, too, and I've been through generation of racing generations, you know what I mean? Growing up, don't remember Dale Sr. that much, but Dale Jr., I love Jimmy Johnson. Of a 24 driver that was actually freaking good. You know what I mean? Tony Stewart and Jeff Gordon. Jeff Gordon for 24, my bad. But Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, Jimmy Johnson, those were my guys. Now I got Blaney. In F1 growing up, we had Schumacher, then it was Lewis Hamilton. Now it might be Kimi Antonelli at 19. Be awesome to see for an Italian. For Browns, though, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, they get rid of all the players that the fans actually have a connection or like somehow. I mean, Nick Chubb, running back. Always have him as a second or third stringer. Why not? Our first two running backs right now are young studs, so I get it. But this was even before we had them. We had freaking Jerome Ford. So it's losing guys like Miles, losing guys like Baker, who has done better than any quarterback we've had since him. It's hard staying in it as a Browns fan. You know what I mean? In F1, people talk about Ferrari. Ferrari still gets wins. You know what I mean? Ferrari has a history of winning. They haven't won the championship since the early 2000s, since the Schumacher era. But they have a history since the early 60s and 50s. They started F1s for Ferrari. For Browns aren't like that in the NFL. We're an old team. We have these old championships, kind of like Ferrari. But we haven't won anything since those old championships in the 60s. A great example. Alfa Romeo, Maserati. These were teams that actually, in F1 and in motorsports, won in the 50s and 60s. Even the 70s. They're not teams anymore. In the early 2000s they were, but they're not anymore. They don't have the money to fund that. They're not popular like they used to be. They stopped winning. The Browns are different. They're in a franchise league. They're going to stay there, but this season it's going to be a rough one. I have people thinking, people actually like the Browns saying we might not want to see the freaking game. And that would be crazy to me. I wouldn't be surprised being a Browns fan, but it'll be a rough year. So, Not excited for that. Hopefully our defense can carry us. We still have a lot of studs on defense. Like we talked about, I think, last week or the week before. We got to re-sign Grant Delpit, and we have, Ward. We have some good guys. These linebackers, JOK's a dog when he's not hurt. We have some rookies coming in. I'm excited. That rookie, I'm sorry I'm forgetting his name, but it maybe reminds me of a freaking Guardians player we were talking about, Edwin Encarnacion. It's something like that, like Encarnacion or something. This rookie wide receiver, he looks amazing. He is like Dez with speed. I don't think he's that tall, but like when I say Dez, I mean yards after, like rack, yards after catch. Because he'll extend. He did a Larry Fitzgerald touchdown in a preseason game. Man, young guys like me, we love that. So once again, guys, another longer episode. Looks like about 45 minutes so far. Really appreciate you guys stopping in on the late night episode 2 at 10. Had to do a little bit later today. Really appreciate everyone stopping by here on Northeast Ohio Sports. So here on the Blue Doodle channel. Once again, episode 67. We'll be back here Monday with a news show. I do love doing this YouTube stuff, guys, but I'm not always consistent, so make sure you stay on the Facebook with that. Sometimes I have concerts, I have stuff going on, I'm going to miss the show. I'll try to post about it, but if I don't post about a show during that day, don't. Best to do is subscribe, give us a like to help us out with that YouTube algorithm, and ring that bell to the bottom right if you want to be notified whenever I go live as well. So nothing not bad either. It'll pop up on your phone, you don't have to look on Facebook. Really appreciate everyone. Hope you have a great night, and one more day till Friday and the awesome weekend with some great sports happening.